Hello everybody, welcome back to Just Lights. Today I'm going to be kind of working on this Code 3 SD bar right here. Pretty much when I first got this bar, I had to do a little bit of fixing up with some of the contacts inside there, replace some of the bulbs, and I tried to polish the lens out the best I could. But then at one point I decided to modify it, and I picked up a bunch of green LEDs and stuck some green LEDs inside there. And then since my wife likes the color green, since you can see right through the speaker, I put her name inside there, so I kind of made a bar kind of for her, even though she doesn't really care about light bars. But I thought I'd do something for her. So I'm going to fire it up real fast and just kind of show you that real quick, and then I'm going to get on to kind of cleaning this thing up a little bit. So you can see where I kind of put her name right there in the center of it, just for something to do. And so my plan is I'm still going to keep it the way it is. I just want to kind of clean it up a little bit, see if I can buff those lenses out a little bit more. I do have one that kind of slows down a little bit, so I'm going to see if I can adjust that belt. So let's kind of tinker with this a little bit. So what we're working on is a second generation Code 3 SD bar. There was 3 generations of this bar. The first generation had lamp holders that remind you of the grout lights. The second generation had the clips that held the bulbs in place like this one has. And then the third generation had independent rotators where the reflector would spin around the bulb. At first glance, when the lights are off, the Code 3 and the Twin Sonic bars look a lot alike. Alright, so you can see the inside of this bar is pretty dirty, pretty gross. So I'm going to go ahead and actually disassemble the whole bar, because since these don't have the chain underneath of it like a Twin Sonic and everything's on top, I'm going to go ahead and disassemble it, get in there, get this stuff all cleaned up really good. Grease all the things up like they need to be, so this way they turn nice and freely, and then kind of do some reassembly after that. Alright, so I got it all completely disassembled. So what my plan is tomorrow when it's daylight, I'm going to go ahead and take like some degreaser. I'm going to spray everything down with the degreaser, scrub it, pressure wash it, change out any of these older wires, see what I can do to make sure I get a better contact with those down there, and then reassembly. Some of the biggest differences between the two bars is the Twin Sonic had one motor that ran the whole bar, and it was a chain-driven bar. The Code 3 had dual motors, and they were belt-driven. The Twin Sonic only came with 2 rotating assemblies and 4 par 36 bulbs, whereas the Code 3 came with 4 rotating assemblies and 8 bulbs, but more bulbs could be added with triple bulb hangers. Alright, so I got everything as clean as it's going to let me get it. I mean, some of the stuff is just not coming off, and I don't want to sit there and use a wire brush and, mar it up really bad, so I might try to use something, but other than that, I mean, I got as clean as it's going to be compared to what it was. I got all these cleaned up really good. I got all the pins, the mirrors polished up, so I'm going to go ahead and start reassembling. Okay, so before I get too far along with the assembly of this thing, I want to kind of show you guys the unique approach that Code 3 did to get their power up to their lamp holders compared to, like, say, a Twin Sonic. So right here, here's your Twin Sonic turntable assembly, I guess you want to call it. And you have like your main plate right here, which would be your ground side. There'll be a rod that actually comes through here with your gear on the bottom for your chain. It comes up to the top here, and that's what your lamp holders would sit on top of. And then they have this little copper plate right here, and on the bottom of your light assembly, there'd be a couple brushes that would kind of stick down like this. Those brushes would sit on top of here, and as it spun around, that's what would make the contact for your positive side. And that's essentially how the Twin Sonic worked. Well, how Code 3 approached theirs is, you can see they just have like this little, tab kind of thing that's kind of sticking up. It's kind of attached to this piece down here, which is just a little reinforcement rib, I guess you can say. And then what they have is they have this little copper rod right here with an insulator that goes around it, and essentially that copper rod goes through here. The insulator with the insulator and all this stuff is what keeps it protected from here. So this is essentially your ground. This is your negative side of the lamp holder. This will be your positive side of the lamp holder. And then on the bottom side, they would have had a long screw like this that let me line the hole up. Goes through that bar, that little copper rod all the way through. Get put the screw on fast. Okay, so I got that in there. And what you can see on here is you can see they actually have two nylon washers, one on this side and one on this side. And what that's doing is that's keeping that copper rod from touching any of the aluminum around it. And so now that's essentially what my wire is going to hook to for my positive side. So then they had a nut on here, a nut first. And what this nut is for is this is just to kind of lock it in place to keep it from, you know, walking out, loosening, whatever the case may be. And these threads or these little bolts are kind of a copper base. You gotta be very careful because you will snap them, strip them so easy. And you just put your wire on there. Then you have your second nut that go on there, just like this right here. Now I'm using a wrench to hold the backside because I want to make sure that I don't, you know, turn it and possibly break it. Get it as snug as you can before you think you might be trying to break it. Don't break that thing. And then that's pretty much how they would do the other assembly for their power. And then at that point, they have this little spring on here. The spring goes over top of that right there. Then you'd have your assembly, which is going to be this one right here. This is the side I'm working on. So then the assembly will go over top. And the way the assembly is set up is this area right here, this copper right here, is attached to the bottom of this. So this becomes your ground for your lights. Then they have these two little copper pieces that are right here that are insulated from that copper by this little nylon sleeve right here. And then this is your positive side. So they go over top here. They have this little sleeve that goes inside, a little washer that goes around it. I don't really know what the reason for the washer, to be kind of completely honest with you, because it really doesn't do anything. I'm sure it has a purpose. I just don't know what it is. And then at that point, there's a hole in the top of that copper rod. Take a cotter key, put a cotter key in there, fold it all the way around. Make sure when it's folded all the way around, no part of that is protruding out in any way that might snag your little positive lead. And that right there is essentially how they created their power. So now your power, your positive side would go here. So when the power comes from the bar, it comes up through there, goes to here. Those powers go down to those little copper rods. That copper rod is essentially touching these copper pieces right here for your positive, and then the chassis is essentially grounded to the base. Completely different system than the Twin Sonic. I thought I'd show that because it's kind of an interesting little thing that they have there. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting the light bar together so we can see this thing in the finished state. Okay, to show how I actually put those LEDs in there, these are just little LED modules. They originally had a flange around them, and that's what the screws would went into when you put it right up flat on some kind of surface. And it just has the two wires coming out the back. I just have a fork connector on one and a female connector on the other. And all I was doing is, because I don't want to make any modification to the bar that is essentially irreversible, because eventually I plan on putting probably the bright bulbs in here at some point. Essentially all I did there is I put that on, and both these chassis have these couple little quarter-inch screws that hold them down to that base piece. I'm just taking that fork connector, I'm just putting it underneath that. That's what's creating my ground. And then the female connector, I kind of bent one side out, and all I'm doing here is just pushing it over the positive connector portion of the carriage, and that's all I'm doing to put those LEDs in there. Okay, so it's all cleaned up, reassembled, and ready to go. Now, I don't really know what's going on with the plastic on this particular lens right here. I tried hitting it with some 3000 grit and then, buffed it out. Still didn't look very good. So I went ahead and did it again with a 1000 grit so I could dig into it a little deeper. 2500, then a 3000 again, buffed it out. Still didn't really do much. So I tried buffing the inside. I didn't do any wet sanding on the inside, but tried using the buffer, kind of hit the inside. That didn't make any difference neither. So I'm thinking maybe it was just a bad mix of the plastic when they extruded it. That's the only thing I can guess, because this side looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this side right here. So, but it is what it is. Maybe one day down the road, I'll come across a good lens I could throw on there. But for now, I'm going to consider this bar to be done, complete, ready to be put back up on the shelf. Like I said, this is one of those Code 3 SD bars. Just go ahead and turn it on. All right, so here we go. My Code 3 SD bar, turning, burning, doing its thing. Like I said, the LEDs was just something I kind of did just for fun, just kind of messing around with it. Because when I first got this bar, I actually got this thing out of a giant junk pile. A buddy of mine bought a piece of property, and in the back property just had this big pile of rubbish. And I actually found it in there. And when I got it, like I said, half the bulbs didn't work, all that kind of stuff. And these right here were like super cheap. So I went ahead and just threw them in there just for fun. Down the road, I might maybe invest in those like new Par 36 LED bulbs to put in there down the road. Maybe get some reds and blues or something like that. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as is because I kind of like the way it looks. But I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.